Hello and welcome to the Soul Steady Life podcast. This is episode 2. I wasn't sure when I recorded episode 1 if this was going to become a thing or not, but here we are, second episode. We will see how this progresses. I am just allowing it to unfold as it is and just seeing what happens as a result of me sharing my story through breast cancer. I mentioned in episode 1 that I share my story in service of others, other women who may be going through something similar to what I went through. When you are listening to my story, my intention is that you are always referencing back to yourself and taking what resonates for you, with you, and maybe not doing what I did or make the choices that I made along my journey. I know each breast cancer journey is very unique. I know that. I've lived that. So that's where we're at today. The last episode ended with me finding out after my lumpectomy that the margins were not cleared and knowing that I was likely heading in to the double mastectomy surgery that I knew that I was going to have. In that moment, I felt the sense of that hitting my body. Devastation is a word that comes up for me. Also, I knew that in the back of my mind that was likely where I would be heading. I did not know that it would be so soon afterwards. A few days after I received the phone call from my surgeon, he went on vacation. A vacation / work trip, I should say, and left. And then he was going to return the day before my double mastectomy surgery was scheduled for. During this time, when he called, again, it was another time where I received a phone call that I was not exactly prepared for and didn't think of all of the questions or all of what I maybe should have asked in that conversation because it was unexpected. I didn't prepare in advance. I don't know if I really could have prepared. Again, I did see the results though, and I might have mentioned this in the last episode. I saw the results online first before I received that phone call. Knowing that I was heading into that double mastectomy, what that gave me, because the surgeon left, he left the country for a few weeks, knowing what I knew then, that I was heading into a double mastectomy, him leaving created space for me, created time and space for me in between those two surgeries, which was wonderful. The space was wonderful. It allowed me to fully process and prepare in a way. I still was taking a leave of absence from my online teaching job at the time because I was healing from my lumpectomy, and then I was going to go into the double mastectomy. During that time, I initially said, in the initial consultation with the breast surgeon, I initially said no to getting a referral to a plastic surgeon. Well, I ended up in a plastic surgeon's office because I had listened to a podcast. How I happened upon this podcast. It was a breast surgeon from the East Coast explaining a procedure, a breast reconstruction procedure, a deep flap procedure using the patient's own tissue. And what that surgeon was doing also was doing nerve reconstruction. And nipple preservation. So that way the nerves would still be intact. Ideally, the nipples would be preserved if it was oncologically sound decision to preserve the nipples. In that, listening to that conversation, my mind was opened. My mind was open to the possibility of, did I want to choose a different path for reconstruction? I knew I did not want implants, and I knew that likely the tissue reconstruction is the type of reconstruction that I would choose if that would be a choice that I would make. After listening to that podcast, my mind was opened. I contacted the surgeon from the surgeon's office from the East Coast. I exchanged several messages. Ultimately, I tuned in and decided, I contemplated going there for the surgery. They were welcoming me in to that process if it were to work out, thinking about the logistics of that and all of that. If there were to be additional complications, all of that was not the right thing, was not the right path for me to fly to the East Coast and stay there and have the surgery and then come back. I decided then to make an appointment with a local plastic surgeon to get more information and to figure out if the deep flap reconstruction was something that I did in fact want to pursue. And before that appointment, I went in and I tuned in to myself, to spirit, to God, universe, whatever you want to call it. I tuned in a way, and I sent up what I wanted was to hear the exact words from this plastic surgeon that I needed to hear in order to make my decision really clear. He did that for me, and I am so grateful. He said words I don't think he says to any of his patients. I don't think he would ever even say this to a patient. However, the words that he said made it so clear that I said, no, this isn't for me. And in that appointment, he kept asking me, what do you want? I did not have a clear answer for that at the time. 2 days later, a clear answer popped in, and that answer was, I want to have 2 healthy breasts and not have cancer living in either of them and not having to be on this journey. That is what I wanted. However, was not my reality. I was there navigating through all of the decisions that came along with the breast cancer diagnosis. While holding gratitude, I am so grateful that we live in a time where women do have options for breast mound reconstruction post double mastectomy. I am so grateful for that. I am also grateful that I knew and was aware of aesthetic flat closure, that was an option for me. I am an advocate for aesthetic flat closure in the way that I want every woman to know that is an option. Whether or not they choose that option, that is their decision, and I honor and respect all women's decisions in that. However, I want every woman to know that aesthetic flat closure post mastectomy, single or double mastectomy, is an option. It is one of the options out there, because I don't think a lot of times in the medical community that is an option that is brought forward to women. I think most times, and this wasn't my experience necessarily, it wasn't brought forward, but I brought it forward first. So I don't know if it would have come up in a conversation with the surgeon that I chose to work with. It might have come up. He heard me when I said, no, I don't want and a referral to the plastic surgeon, and this was my breast surgeon. He heard me and honored me and respected me. And then when I said I want an aesthetic flat closure, he heard that too. It is a procedure that he has performed, and he did a beautiful, beautiful job on my chest. In all of that, I want women to know that is an option. So I had this time I met with the plastic surgeon. I got a clear no. The DIEP flap was not a choice for me. 2 days after that appointment, a level of awareness popped in to my field, and that awareness was that I was again pursuing breast mound reconstruction as a way of getting out of the grief of losing my breasts. With that awareness, so the awareness of that, here I was trying to get out of something that I was going to have to move through, I realized that regardless of what choice I made post mastectomy, I was losing my breasts regardless. I was losing my breasts as I knew it. So letting that reality settle in that I was going to lose my breasts. They were no longer going to be part of my body. I accepted that. I was able to move through that. Because I had time, I was so grateful for that time because I did a couple of things that were really helpful for me. One, I celebrated and honored my breasts while they were a part of my body in 2 ways that were aligned with me and my soul and what was right for me in saying goodbye to my breasts. The first one was I took my daughter Ruby out of school and we went, and my husband joined us for the Sunday, and then we stayed the night and spent Monday with just the two of us. We went to a local resort that has a pool, and I swam and played and lounged by the pool with my family. It was November at the time. It was a little chilly outside. However, it was a beautiful day. I think I actually got a little sun from my experience. I wasn't putting sunscreen on because of the time of year it was. And it was just a beautiful time with my family to celebrate and honor. I called it my boobs in the pool celebration, and that is what I wanted. It was play, it was fun, it was connection with my husband and my daughter, who was 10 at the time, and it was beautiful. We spent hours in the pool together as a family. We spent 4 to 5 hours that first day, and then my daughter and I spent another 4 or 5 hours in the pool the next day. The second thing that I did, and this popped up from my intuition, was to contact our family photographer and reach out to her and ask her if she would take photos of my breasts before going in to my mastectomy surgery, which was interesting because she has only taken pictures of our family. And I contacted her and she said, yes, I will definitely do that. I was so grateful that she said yes. And then she called me and we discussed. She asked me, well, what were you thinking? What was your vision for this? Well, my vision was to have her come over and take a few photos of my naked breasts in my own home. That was my vision. Her vision was quite more grand than my vision for this whole experience. Her vision was full-on goddess and nature photo shoot, which ultimately she invited me on. I am so grateful for that time, for that adventure. It was 2 days before my double mastectomy. I drove and met her somewhere about an hour and a half away from my home. And we traveled together to these hot springs that I had not ever been to. And she photographed me and took beautiful, beautiful photos of me and my naked breasts in nature. Come to find out along the way that she was also a cancer survivor, which I did not know prior. And the other thing that was interesting was she's taken photos of many women nude in nature. I did not know this. She does not advertise for this anywhere. And it was so beautifully aligned. She happened to have some extra time and space in her schedule. I was on a bit of a timeline because my surgery was coming up, and it was a beautiful experience. And I have these beautiful photos and memories of my breasts as they were prior to my double mastectomy and having them no longer be a part of my body. The other beautiful part about that is the photos show my scar and the bruising from my lumpectomy. And at first she said, "Oh, I can edit that out. That's not a big deal." And I very quickly said, "Actually, no. I want you to leave that there because that is part of the journey of seeing what my breast had already been through prior to my double mastectomy." Leading up then to the surgery, I was feeling much more steady than I was for going into the lumpectomy. Like I mentioned earlier, I had a lot of fear moving in to the lumpectomy surgery, and I had a lot of fear about the surgery itself. That lumpectomy was in alignment with my path because I realized at the time I needed that little, it was a little baby surgery of surgeries. And I needed that to have the confidence of going into the bigger surgery of that double mastectomy. And I did choose to have a double mastectomy instead of, I only had cancer living in my right breast at the time, and my left breast did not have cancer living in it. And I chose to have a double mastectomy instead of a single mastectomy for several reasons. And that was a personal choice. And I talked to my breast surgeon about that the day before my surgery and asked him what he thought about it and if I was making a decision that was fear-based. And he said, you could probably argue that yes, it is a fear-based decision based upon, the fact that you do have a healthy breast. And I just really felt into the peace and freedom of not having either breast that I did not want to keep one. I had large breasts also. They, I was so grateful for my breasts and having them. They fed my daughter 10 years ago when I had her, 11 years now, 10 years ago, 11 years now, but 10 years ago at the time, they fed my daughter. I was so grateful for them. And sexually, that came up too. That conversation came up in my surgeon's office that first visit. I did not get a lot of pleasure from my nipples post having breastfeeding my daughter. And I just knew it would be more challenging for me dressing with one breast, and then I would have to wear a bra for the other side. And I think I would, feel like I needed to wear a prosthetic on the other side, and grateful that that is a choice for women to be able to choose that now, because that is a shift from where things have been. So that is what I decided. I did need to advocate for myself because, like I said, my surgeon was out of town, and I wanted to see him one more time and have one more conversation with him prior to my double mastectomy surgery. And when I tried to make an appointment, the receptionist said, "No, there's nothing available. We can't fit you in." And that is where I said, I was very clear, I need to see him before surgery. I have my surgery scheduled on this date. Then we need to look at potentially rescheduling my surgery, which I did not want to do. However, I knew I needed to see him and just have another conversation, one last conversation with him in person before moving into the surgery. And I am so grateful that they found time for me. I met with him the day before my surgery. That was very helpful, just to have one last conversation, that he really validated the decision that I was making to have a mastectomy and not going back in for a second time for the lumpectomy. He really thought that, yes, the cancer was a lot larger than it showed on the imaging. He took more tissue in the lumpectomy than he had expected to take, and saw potential calcifications on MRI that I had done that were a little bit higher up on my breast, so a different region than where he did the lumpectomy. Anyway, so then I was moving in to that double mastectomy. I am going to pause this episode here, and then the next episode we'll talk about the the double mastectomy, how that surgery was, what kinds of things popped up in my recovery. Yeah. So I, again, share my story with the intention of supporting you along your journey. I do have a free guide if you are scheduled for a double mastectomy. If you are here to support someone that is moving into a mastectomy surgery, the guide is broken down into two parts. It's a 2-page guide. One is both lists. There are 2 lists of 7 items that were very helpful for me moving through my surgery, supporting comfort in my surgery. They were physical items. And then the second list is items that were helpful for me to receive. So it would be helpful gifts for you to give a friend or someone you know who is having that surgery. There also are on that guide some reflection questions, because I don't want you just to take what I said is helpful for me and use that for you. I want you to go back within and reflect and decide on what works for you. So that is, I'll put the link down below to grab that guide, and would love for you to follow me on Instagram at soulsteadylife is my Instagram. Emily@soulsteadylife.com is my email. Reach out to me on email or DM me on Instagram. I am here to support you, and I see you and honor you wherever you are at along your journey. Sending you so much love and gratitude for being here today, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.